Happy Tuesday! Look, I'm back in my little space. It makes me so happy to be here in this space now, actually, which I feel like that tells me I'm getting more comfortable with this routine and with the new daily show and with this little camera. Although, even as I tell you, I'm becoming more comfortable with the camera that's constantly monitoring me and is constantly shooting that little green light at me. It's a little green laser, a little green monster. Haha, as someone who grew up in New England, I certainly love the green monster at Fenway Park. So this little camera that I think I'm getting used to as my friend and the mechanism by which we are connected every day. Earlier, about an hour before the show started, I'm thinking, what in the world? I'm trying to set up the camera and I can't get video. It just shows me an icon of a camera with a, a slash through it indicating no. There's no camera slash and I can't really understand what's wrong. I'm trying to check the settings on our StreamYard, which is what gets the live stream up to YouTube. And finally I realized there's no cord. I have gotten to this point where I count cords to make sure I have them all. And I realized there's no cord plugging in the camera. So I had left it in my bag when I came back from mom's on Monday. And so, yeah, that would be the reason why there was no video. Thankfully, figured that out on my own before producer Zach was asking me to be up on screen. So, phew, disaster averted. The perfect show is still intact. Maybe not. It won't take long. Don't you worry. But it is nice to know that this is my comfort zone here, this little space. And it's kind of funny, makes me a little nervous, but I'm going to try it at the encouragement of our PR director at Rogue Media Network. Her name is Andrea, and she is a social media maverick. She does social for her parents' business and for the company, and that's really her area of expertise. And we had kind of been looking over our TikTok account. I'm glad so few of you have found it over the first 3+ weeks. It was a disaster. And we don't really know what happened other than please don't go check it. Other than TikTok may have had some automatic filters or automatic enhancements that attach themselves to some of our videos and in essence just turned the whole thing into a mess, and I hated it. So I was freaking out about it a little bit. Anyway, we had a conversation. Turns out that it's happening with some of our other Rogue Media accounts. Anyway, so she's in the process of overhauling. So as we're talking about our social media, again, do not check the TikTok. It's not the account that it will be. But as we're talking about ways that we can give people like you what they're looking for on our social media, she suggests a behind the scenes video as I'm getting ready for the show. Okay, well, I'm pretty careful about the videos that I put out there. I'm very controlled about the background, where I go. I don't really want people walking through my home, of course. That makes sense. And so we kind of agreed that what we'll do is a high angle camera here in the studio so that you all can see the space other than just this little rectangular box where you see my face, where the camera, as I say, is aimed very pointedly and also in a way that I know what is going on around me, I'm happy with. Maybe I'll take you on a tour of my special set of shelves back there as well. So we'll do that on Friday. Now, it may take her a couple days to get the video up there, but to give people an idea of what the space is like over this shoulder and over this shoulder where you can't see. And maybe, just maybe, I'll give you your first shot of the painting that I made that goes along with the one that my husband painted. That one is It's amazing. I'm still really impressed with his artistic abilities. Mine not so much. However, maybe you'll get a taste of that one. They do hang side by side. We actually had them hanging up in the house that we first lived in together in New Jersey, and we've moved them to Texas as well. So maybe you'll get to see a little more of this space, but I'm more comfortable just sitting here talking to you. I feel like I've taken some big steps in getting to the point where I can actually smile at the camera and not be really petrified of having to look at this thing all the time. And I do like some of the benefits of video, as I've told you. I'm getting more used to this as a way to communicate with people, even though I don't know that it'll ever be my first love, but I do understand why it's a great way to connect with people, a different way, but a great way to connect with people. And also the on demand element is fantastic because we are finding out that we get a ton of traffic later in the day during the week, but also on the weekends. There is a lot of different people who will come and will find our content on the weekends when we don't have original shows. So all of us settling into a new routine, but this next step to give you all a tour, if you will, of my studio space here. Do I need to clean it? Do I need to change it? No, I want it to be real and authentic. So I'm going to leave it the way it is and just walk you around the little studio and maybe show you what goes into me setting up the computer and the microphone and the camera with the cord. So happy Tuesday. I hope it's a terrific Tuesday. It is hard to believe that it's August 25th. Oh my gosh. We are getting close to the end of summer officially. I wouldn't say the end of summer so much in terms of the weather. And I've stopped looking at the forecast because I don't need to do that. I don't need to know that there are more days of triple digits coming up. But I do know that as we head toward the end of September, it just feels different. The Labor Day weekend is late, as we talked about on Monday. It's late this year. And so football actually kicks off this weekend in the college ranks, which kind of blows me away. But we'll get there. We'll get to the full weekends where you've got college football on Saturdays and I guess another day or another Thursday game as well. Though generally once the NFL takes over Thursdays to kick off its weekend, those games on Thursday in college are not the marquee games necessarily. But yeah, you'll get football on Thursday, on Saturday, on Sunday, on Monday. Oh my gosh, it's coming. The behemoth that is the NFL is coming. But right now, the focus is not so much on position battles. Yesterday was all about the Browns and their quarterback situation. It was funny because a couple of friends and also producer Zach described the Browns situation as the gift that keeps on giving, or nonstop drama, or never a dull moment, or always something. And those really are phrases that I use to talk about the Browns every August and every September at this time when it seems like they're wading through the muck yet again, trying to figure out their quarterback. How can we break out of what's been a long stretch of losing? A couple of playoff spots notwithstanding, it's the same old storylines with the Browns, but not today. Okay. So we did that on Monday. It was a manic Monday for the Browns and their fan base. And boy, our comments section about the Browns, the clips that we put out there, both a longer form from Monday's show as well as a short that I did on Deshaun Watson, those are getting a ton of traffic. But I feel like today, unless something breaks, unless there's more of Deshaun Watson putting his foot in his mouth, we can go Browns free zone. You know I love you, Cleveland fans. My mom's whole side of the family is from Northeast Ohio. I grew up knowing all about Cleveland sports. My first ever professional baseball game was in Cleveland. My grandfather took me when I was a kid. I don't even think I was a teenager yet. And so I do have a special place in my heart for Northeast Ohio, and that will never change. It was like my second home when I was growing up, but I also got to be real about what it's like to be a Cleveland sports fan for so many of you that have been full of angst for so many years. Though 2016 and the Cavaliers rallying from a 1-3 deficit in the NBA Finals, that championship, it goes a long way. But for today, we're going to focus on some other football storylines. Although, as I was thinking about it, reading a bit about what's happening in Atlanta with the Falcons quarterback competition, which right now is a real legitimate battle, and the fact that they've got a third dude who's entered the chat, I thought, yeah, I could spend my entire show talking about the Falcons quarterback situation, and it just wouldn't have the same juice as does the Browns quarterback drama. But yes, there is kind of an interesting wrinkle to the Falcons QB competition. So we will talk about that a little bit later on. Also, some basketball, weirdly enough, on this edition of All In with Amy Lawrence. And the reason is because we're only 8 weeks away from tip off to the season. No, that's not the reason. The reason is because there is a future Hall of Famer who has just changed teams. And I know we've had a bunch of that this offseason. It's been pretty crazy in terms of player movement and high profile player movement. So the fact that we've had a lot of superstars and all-stars change teams, I don't know if it ends up affecting the balance of power as much, though I suspect that we'll have different teams that are part of the run to the NBA Finals. Now, that's so far away. There are preseason games and 82 regular season games, and some of these teams with tweaked rosters or newly built rosters will have quite a process to get to the point where they can compete for a championship. But it is some fresh blood, and it could be some fun new storylines. Still, though, the NBA season doesn't tip off until October, late October. So I'm not there yet, but there is one future Hall of Famer who has a special place in history, but also a special place in my heart for me and for mom. So I'll explain that coming up a little bit later on. Might dive into what the Fever are doing. And I do not mean Stephanie White press conferences or Caitlin Clark hard fouls or Sophie Cunningham and her bold statements. Nah, this is actual just basketball. I don't think that's boring at all. The WNBA playoffs, they come up in October. So it's a tough sell because you've also got Major League Baseball and October being its month where it's on that big stage. Plus, of course, college football, the conference battles that wage, and the second month of the NFL season and the MLS playoffs. So it's a crowded space. Oh, gosh. And NASCAR with its playoffs as well. Golf, too, wrapping up its season with its playoffs. It's a really crowded month. And earlier, actually, as we were prepping for the show, producer Zach used the term sports equinox, which I think is fun. I've actually never used that one before, but it definitely is the busiest month of the year. So eventually they'll get to their playoffs and we'll see if the Fever can make some noise. I just know it's hard sometimes to focus on everything. In October, you have to pick and choose. But what the Fever are doing right now actually sets them up. As much as there were people calling for Stephanie White to get fired a few months ago, the Fever have put themselves in a position where not only have they clinched the playoffs, but they're dealing from a position of strength this year. They're not a surprise. They're not a team that's an upstart that is missing their superstar that maybe can win a round in the playoffs. No, they're an actual legitimate a championship contender. And maybe still they're a year ahead of schedule, but this roster that they put together, while they had a slow start to this season, and yes, there were calls for the head coach to get Das Boot, they're actually playing really well right now, and they have an offensive attack that has multi facets to it and can hurt you a variety of ways. So the actual basketball with the Fever, I think is really fascinating. And can you imagine if Caitlin Clark and the Fever end up in the WNBA finals? Those numbers will go through the roof, just like they did when she and her Iowa teammates were involved in the Final Four in back-to-back years, and of course made it to the national championship games. But she's not won a title, and so to be able to do it at the WNBA level no doubt would be a dream come true for her as well as for her teammates and the coaching staff. So we got a lot on our plates today, but we're going to start in this weird space where there are no answers. There are a lot of questions. There are not many answers, though to his credit, Lane Kiffin has tried to answer the questions of what is happening? That's really the question that a lot of people are posing. What is happening right now with pro players, even if they're early in their careers, guys who have spent time on pro rosters? It's not just football, it's now basketball as well. And this fifth year of eligibility wrinkle, and the fact that the NCAA really didn't take into account that there were going to be athletes who would look at this new rule, not get grandfathered in, and decide, you know what? I feel like that's worth pursuing. So it's a domino effect. There are more athletes who are seeing what's happening now with, say, Daquan Wright, who spent time in this NFL preseason with the Eagles and the Browns, who actually suited up to be part of a preseason game. He didn't get on the field, but he did suit up. He was in a Browns uniform for a preseason game while he was also in the transfer portal, because he and a group of athletes, they sued for a new year or another year of eligibility, a fifth year of eligibility, because they felt like the class of 2022, him coming in when he did, should have been given another year of eligibility and were not. So he's not an isolated case, but he's the one that is becoming the poster child, if you will. He's the one making headlines because he's the one that we're talking about right now, who ended up getting waived by the Browns and stands to join the LSU Tigers if, in fact, he clears waivers. But he's not an isolated case. And I think that's the part that may catch us off guard, is if this happens with dozens of athletes, or over the course of the next couple months, we see this headline more and more often. It's not going to happen for much longer. So this may be the only year in which we see it. Unless, of course, you've got athletes from previous classes, say athletes that didn't graduate in 26, but graduated in 25 or maybe 24. And they look at what's happening. Maybe they've tried to jumpstart their pro careers. They look at what's happening now and the fact that they might be able to sue for another year of eligibility. And you know what? Maybe I will try that too, to see if I can make some money in college, or maybe enhance my draft status to try to go through the draft again. Now, there have been responses already from the SEC, from the Big Ten. This is the type of issue that I told you the NFL will want to jump on if it becomes a pattern, but it's also conferences now who are anxious to kind of squash this as a trend, and they don't want to see this set a precedent for the years to come moving forward. Though I feel like the NCAA, with its new legislation of 5 years of eligibility in 5 actual calendar years, as that kicks in, this won't be an issue. Say 5 years down the road, this won't be a rule that athletes are still trying to tinker with, because everybody who has the 5 years of eligibility moving forward won't have the ability to go get another one, because once the rule kicks in, it's 5 and 5. But for athletes who feel like they missed out, maybe now, maybe next year, you're going to see some of those athletes try to cash in, both figuratively and literally, on another year of college eligibility. So it is convoluted. It's complicated, as I said on Monday, but we are starting to see responses coming from various arenas and from various corners of the college and pro sports landscape. So here's the latest, and then we'll get to Lane Kiffin after our first commercial break. The latest is that there's actually a basketball player who is going to end up on the LSU roster. His name is RJ Lewis Jr., and he was actually the 2025, not 26, the 2025 Big East Player of the Year. And he's been kicking around trying to get a full-time gig in the NBA, but it's not worked. He's had So he was a big star for St. John's in 24-25. He was second team All-America, but he was undrafted in 2025. So we're talking about now a year, not quite a year and a half, but well over a year ago, he was undrafted in the 25 NBA draft. So he signed a contract with the Jazz. Then he ended up in the Celtics G League. And he was later waived by Boston. He did get into some preseason games, but he never got into a regular season game. And he actually is another one of these athletes who's been granted an injunction. So the NCAA is again battling these players from 2022 who feel like they should have been grandfathered in. And because they were excluded, they're going the legal route. And now you're seeing multiple athletes win injunctions against this NCAA regulation of 5 and 5 that will allow them to go back and collect on their 5th year of eligibility. Gosh, every time I talk about it, I feel like I need to go back and lay the foundation because it is really hard to understand if you're not following it on a regular basis. I've had to do a bunch of reading to kind of understand why there are athletes who are now going the legal route. And so, because you've got this is again in Baton Rouge. So the Baton Rouge district court judge has at least granted them an injunction that will allow them to pursue another year of eligibility. And Lewis, he is part of that group, same group as Daquan Wright, but this is basketball, not football. So now we see 2 different sports affected, and he's cleared to play for LSU this season, even though he's signed multiple NBA contracts. Whether or not he stuck and got into the regular season in this point is kind of irrelevant because he did make money, little bit of money, to be part of some NBA rosters in the G League and in the preseason. So he's actually made money at the NBA level because he was on rosters. He was signed to rosters for a short period of time. But now he's going back to LSU. And this is a guy who, I mean, he's not young. In fact, coming up in November, he will be 24 years old. So during the basketball season, he'll be 24 years old. And you may remember John Calipari joked about this last season where they've got a lot of guys with beards playing in basketball and that they come with families. He even made a joke, whether or not you think it's inappropriate, but just underscoring the fact that there's a lot of guys in basketball that are older, into their mid-20s. And he made this joke about how their NIL money is paying alimony to their first wives. Again, maybe off color and not something that you find funny, but he was just trying to point out that coming out of COVID, hit the microphone. Coming out of COVID, because of the way that the NCAA had been granting extra years for, I don't know, guys who suffered an injury or they were abroad for a year so they couldn't play in the United States. All these reasons why athletes were earning an extra year of eligibility meant that, yeah, you got some older players who are already adults with kids and families and ex-wives who are playing college basketball. And the NCAA is trying to limit that and get back to the place where, yeah, you have to play. If you're going to play at the college level, you have to be a student and you've got 5 years of eligibility, but 5 years to get done with your college playing career. And it does apply to athletes across every sport. It's not just football or basketball, the revenue producing sports, which is why we could see other athletes sue and get that year of eligibility. But here we've got 2 examples, one from, well, they both have to do with LSU. They both are about the Tigers getting a really good player. But now we've got 2 examples in 2 different sports. So I don't think it's the end of this, because you've got some athletes who have successfully sued, or at least have successfully earned the right to pursue another year of eligibility until maybe a different court steps in and squashes it. I don't think we've seen the end of the legal path or the legal journey either. So the questions now are for Lane Kiffin and why and how, and don't you have an issue with this? Guys going pro and then coming back. Plus the SEC and the Big Ten have weighed in, but they've had different responses. So we'll get into that as well. mean, it's complicated. I wish I had answers for you, but I don't. I can really only follow the path, the winding road, the twists and turns, just as you are, and try to make sense of it. Love for you to connect with us on social media, just not TikTok. Please, I'm begging you. Instagram is much better if that's your jam. But on X, at A-Law Radio, also on my longtime Facebook page, After Hours with Amy Lawrence, and then on Insta, on your favorite podcast platform. I'm ignoring that other method of social media. Your favorite podcast platform. All you need to do is search for All In with Amy Lawrence. My husband and I went to hang out with a group of friends. We do a Bible study on Monday nights a lot of times. And he had talked about the fact that I was starting this new show. And someone came up to me and said, "Hey, what's the name of your new show?" And I told him, I said, "It's All In with Amy Lawrence. Just search for it on YouTube." And he found it just like that on his phone. It's amazing what happens. Those searches, they take you just some beautiful places, like finding our YouTube channel or our social media. Just please, not TikTok. We're still working out the kinks of this here new show, this newfangled internet thing. It's All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Providence. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us in our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
If you are on social media today and you happen to follow various insiders, analysts, maybe just people who talk about the NFL, or you follow different football accounts, what you're probably seeing, because producer Zach and I were noticing that right now the unveiling of the new rivalry uniforms is taking place, and they're really about, well, they're about selling new jerseys, let's be honest, but they're really about kind of inspiring the local communities to pour into the rivalries. And we've seen this in Major League Baseball and the NBA. And so last year they did the AFC East and the NFC West with their special rivalry uniforms that they'll play when they lock horns, so to speak. Well, now they've got new alternate jerseys, and these come from the NFC North and the AFC South. Whatever you might think of the AFC South, it's a wide open division. I don't know that I feel like the rivalries in the AFC South are all that biting, but I'm telling you what, in the NFC North, you've got rivalries that go back over a century. Some incredibly fierce and tough and intense rivalries where the fans hate each other. So my dad's whole side of the family is from Wisconsin, and Grammy Helen, to the very end, at 100 years old, would give me Packers analysis. And having spent a lot of time in Wisconsin as well, they are, of course, fierce in their Packers loyalties. But you put Packers and Bears on a field together, or Vikings and Lions, those NFC North rivalries are intense. And so I love those. And they're one of the latest divisions to get some of the rivalry uniforms. So what you may be seeing right now is there are these unveiling videos that are taking place, because it's all about the videos, right? Here I am talking about some of the shorts we do. Well, the various teams like the Packers, the Vikings, the Texans, the Colts, I've seen the Jaguars, although it's kind of weird to think about who the Jaguars' top rival would be. But the unveilings are taking place right now in videos that have been released on social. And there is a lot of excitement, I think. And for people who are into jerseys or love the different color schemes, they come with helmets as well. That's what's unfolding right now, at least on my Twix. And it's kind of fun to see people get excited about it. I think mostly we just want to get to the football season. Okay, so back to this whole pro to college, back to the pros, because wouldn't that be the idea? You go back to college, you've kind of kicked around, you didn't get drafted, you've dabbled in the preseason of your respective sport. It didn't work out. And so now your backup plan, plan B, is to return for a fifth year of eligibility, because you've sued the NCAA and you feel like you are justified in saying, hey, I want to play in college again. Well, we've got both the Big Ten and the SEC that are responding to this latest trend that could, in fact, swell. We might see more athletes take advantage of these court rulings. But for now, it's a couple of athletes, one who's going from football back to LSU, or from the NFL back to LSU, and another who's going from NBA back to LSU. So what is the common denominator here? Well, it's Baton Rouge and it's LSU. So obviously Lane Kiffin was going to be asked about it in his press conference on Monday. And I think he does a pretty good job of explaining why it is that this is happening right now, and why, in his opinion, that the athletes are justified in attempting to go back to college. It gives back to school week a whole new meaning. But again, I think he does do a pretty good job explaining it from the athlete's perspective. It's a little bit longer. It's about a minute or so, but I think it might enlighten you about not just what the athletes are thinking and why they're taking this drastic step, but also why, from his perspective as a school, that they are interested in taking advantage of this loophole in the ruling.
I think that situations are different. So, in general, should NFL players come back to college? I believe, it doesn't matter necessarily what I believe, that answer would be no. I think every circumstance should be looked at differently. This is a very unique circumstance, again, because I think there's not a lot of education on this, how this all happened. The judge found that these players should have been told and should have known that they were going to be eligible for a fifth year, which every player moving forward, every athlete moving forward in all sports has. And so they should have known that in December when they were making decisions. Had they known that, they would have stayed.
Okay, so his point is these athletes should be allowed to make this decision now, even if he doesn't believe it's a great trend or it should be allowed moving forward, that these athletes, had they known in December that they would have had a 5th year of eligibility, and maybe the NCAA should have included this 22 class, but because they did not, and these athletes didn't realize that this might be an option, they would have made a different decision. Now, I don't know if he can speak for all of them. Of course, he can speak for the ones who are suing to try to get this temporary restraining order, this injunction to allow them to pursue a 5th year of eligibility or a 5th year of playing at the college level. But he's saying really take the NFL or the NBA out of it in the case of RJ Lewis, because they didn't know at the time. So had they known, they never would have pursued their draft dreams. They would have waited until they felt like their eligibility was exhausted or they couldn't improve their draft or their draft status or stock. So then it's interesting because then the follow-ups become about LSU jumping into it. Why is LSU doing this then? Because, hey, these athletes, sure, they can seek a 5th year of eligibility, but LSU appears to be a common denominator here. So why, if you don't actually believe that it's a great principle or a great model or that guys and gals should be able to go pro and then come back to college, if that's not your theory, well, then why is LSU the common denominator, and why is LSU recruiting these athletes out of the portal?
A group of players were granted a 5th year of eligibility around the country in multiple sports. And through them winning their injunction and entry into the portal, they're available to recruit. And so ourselves, like many places around the country, are recruiting them. And at the end of the day, you know, because of these rulings, they're either going to play for you or they're going to play somewhere else around the country. So we've made a decision to recruit them, like probably most people are.
A lot of people are pointing to Lane Kiffin, who at times will take liberties with the rules or the regulations and find loopholes in them. There are times when I've described him as a little bit slimy, a little bit greasy. He definitely tries to figure out how he can push the envelope. In fact, this is kind of funny as a wrinkle to this. It doesn't have anything to do with the 5th year of eligibility. But did you see the story that Ole Miss actually went through and checked his former office for bugs? So apparently, and this is coming from the athletic director, there's a player or an active athlete at Ole Miss whose father works for the FBI. And so while they didn't actually hire the FBI to come in and sweep Lane Kiffin's former office and the facilities, he did come in, according to the AD, he did come in and help them look for bugs. But the AD admits that he was down on his knees looking up underneath the desk to find out if there were listening devices, because they weren't so sure that Lane Kiffin might not have bugged his office to get an extra advantage, if you will. So there are some suspicions and people are instantly jumping to, hey, this is Lane Kiffin. This is him being greasy. This is him trying to exploit the rules and recruit these guys and get ahead of it as a way to boost LSU. Well, the SEC definitely doesn't like it, regardless of the fact that right now the legal process is on the side of these athletes getting their 5th year. But the SEC does not agree with Lane Kiffin. And when he says, hey, if we don't recruit them, someone else will. It's just that the connection is there. So you wonder if this was done through backdoor channels and backdoor conversations, to the point where, let me explain, the athletes might not have sought a 5th year of eligibility through the legal route, if not for the fact that they knew LSU would be waiting for them if they got a favorable outcome. Does that make sense? So they pursued this legal route in Baton Rouge, which is the home of LSU. And by doing so, if they had the support of the university and knew that Lane Kiffin would be waiting there with open arms at a roster spot, that there would be and I don't know, I have not seen this addressed anywhere, but that there would be NIL money waiting for Daquan Wright or other athletes when they return to college, they might not have pursued this avenue. Okay, so knowing they had a soft place to land, if you will, it's a little bit like quitting one job because you know you have another job and a salary and a position waiting for you. And the fact that the judge is in Baton Rouge means that you're likely, I don't want to accuse the judge of any nefarious conduct or being biased, because that's wrong. It looks like they found a judge by filing in that district court. It looks like they found a judge who will see it their way because maybe he identifies more with LSU in Baton Rouge. But I'm not accusing a judge of, again, being biased or not upholding the law. This is a loophole the NCAA created. So it's on the NCAA, who maybe should have seen this coming, with drawing the line of demarcation and not grandfathering in athletes who were just graduated or graduated right before this rule would take effect. But again, the SEC is not on the side of Lane Kiffin. Here is the statement released after the SEC presidents and chancellors had an emergency video conference. So this is the statement in its entirety. College athletes, not former professional athletes, have been at the heart of the Southeastern Conference. Individuals who choose to leave college athletics, sign professional playing contracts, and compete professionally should not then be permitted to return to college competition. Allowing that to occur will blur the line between college and professional sports, create significant competitive equity concerns, and reduce opportunities for high school and current college athletes. College sports are for college athletes. The current confusion around national eligibility standards emphasizes the need to advance the Protect College Sports Act. So that last line there, well, that's more about, hey, let's get this legislation pushed through on Capitol Hill. This act has been in the hands of Congress. They were looking at it. They potentially were going to take a vote, but then took their late summer recess. It's not the first piece of legislation to get stalled in Congress when it comes to college sports, but clearly the SEC is on the side of feeling like this legislation could, in fact, rein in what is a free-for-all in college sports right now. But to be fair, it's a little bit ironic that the SEC is pushing for this and also pushing for regulations, considering that the SEC is a major reason why college sports are out of control right now, paying under the guise of NIL top flight athletes millions and millions of dollars. There are different studies out there, maybe incomplete, but they give you a gist that indicate there are more than one, maybe up to a dozen schools right now that have $40 million rosters, meaning that their athletes overall, they're paying athletes, whether it's NIL, whether it's just flat out pay for play, that they are paying their athletes, their college athletes as a whole, more than $40 million. And some of those schools are in the SEC. So this whole deal about competitive equity, I mean, that to me is ridiculous. And also the fact that the line that if you allow athletes to go from college to pro and come back, that the line is blurred between pro and college sports. Are you kidding me? The line's been blurred since the NIL legislation that allowed schools to start funneling money to athletes that is seven figures and up. I mean, the line is already blurred. It's just funny that they chose to draw their line in the sand, at this point here. I do agree with the part about the opportunities for high school and current college athletes. If you're going to have this pipeline that goes pro to college, you are reducing opportunities for college athletes who aren't going to play at the next level, but are, enjoying whatever eligibility they have left. And also to recruit young people coming out of high school, you're going to end up losing roster spots for them as well if this is a ruling that's allowed to proliferate. Goodness, it's so gray area. It's so complicated. So that's the SEC response. The Big Ten is actually taking it a step further. So they've decided that they're not going to take this lying down. So we'll get to that coming up. But yeah, it's all the rage right now. Everybody in the sports world has an opinion about what this might mean or what this could do, including some of you who are weighing in on our YouTube live stream. So we'll try to get to some of those comments as well. Glad to be back in studio here in a little bit of my comfort zone, which is funny to say because when we started this whole venture and new show 3.5 weeks ago, there was no part of it that was comfortable for me. But it's good to know that many of you are watching live and hanging out with us while the show is live. And of course, you can connect with us on social media as well. It's funny because for years, every time I would talk about the show and how listeners could then connect with me when the show was over, I would always throw out a phone number too, like, hey, if you want to weigh in on the phones, but we can't do that on YouTube. Sorry, I had a listener on my Facebook page, I think, say, hey, bring back some of those callers that used to be regulars on your show after hours. And they were so much fun and we really got to know them. And yeah, you connect with characters when you open up the phone lines, but we can't do that on YouTube because we don't have a dump button, meaning we can't filter or protect the show from whatever people might say. And we also don't have a delay, which would allow us to monitor and to censor if we needed to. So that's dangerous, especially as a female in sports talk. Trust me when I say it's dangerous. Some of the stuff that doesn't go over the air that I heard during my time working on CBS Sports Radio that we were able to dump, it was not only inappropriate, but it was offensive. And the internet's a different place, you know? All right. The Big Ten response is straight ahead here. All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's it's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
As we started talking about this issue on Monday of athletes getting an extra year of eligibility courtesy of the court system and going from, say, NFL training camps back into college, and now there is a streamline, maybe that's too strong. There is a trickle also in basketball where it's RJ Lewis Jr., the 25 Big East Player of the Year, who's heading to LSU. There's another basketball player who is going to Kentucky. There are multiple basketball players who are getting a fifth year of eligibility, but not all of them are going from pros back to college. Okay, so that's kind of the space that we're focused on is this injunction allowing players who've actually kicked around in the pros, who've signed contracts with the NFL or the NBA, but didn't land on a roster where they played in regular season games. So they were waived by their respective teams, the Browns and the Celtics. Had they not been waived, I don't know that we'd be talking about this. If there was a chance that they could make a roster for 2026 and 7, then maybe we're not talking about it. Maybe they choose to pursue their pro dreams as opposed to jumping back to college. So these are athletes that weren't drafted, and the hope might be that they improve their draft status for the following round of drafts, or that they can make some more money at the college level, and that would allow them to chase their pro dreams longer. Because practice players or, preseason players who end up getting cut by respective teams, they're not making a ton of money. It's not like it's chump change. You're not finding it in the well of the seats or the well of the console between your seats in your truck, but it's depending upon how long you stick with a pro roster, it's not a ton of money. We're not talking about an annual salary, and it's certainly not six figures. But the disruption is what the SEC is focused on, which I think is really funny. Greg Sankey, I read you the SEC statement, but Greg Sankey, he's the one who is saying that this pipeline, if it becomes that of athletes going from pro sports to college, actually, quote, fuels disruption and should not be allowed. So that's what he told the Louisiana courthouse last week. Well, that's humorous. Are you kidding me? Talk about ironic. Isn't that exactly what's happening right now with the college football playoff and expanding it? The NIL money that actually turns into money laundering in some cases just to flat out pay athletes. It's a mess. It's nothing but disruption going back for the last 5 years, where college athletics they're the wild, wild west is the phrase that I've used. I know Tom Barfield, our guest on Monday's show, used that same phrase. So I felt validated. But yeah, it's all disruption of the system that we've known. Even if it was imperfect, everything's up for grabs and everything's changing now. And so the disruption term kind of made me laugh. But that's Greg Sankey, who is the commissioner of the SEC. Okay, so you've got other conferences that are weighing in. And even as I am going to tell you about the Big Ten and the bold step that they're taking, I saw this on X and wanted to pass it along. Chris Vanini, he covers college sports for The Athletic. He's a senior writer. I've spoken to him before on shows in the past. He says the ACC is considering a league-wide rule to prohibit NFL players from playing in the conference. That's according to the Wake Forest athletic director and the ACC athletic director chair. His name is John Curry. You may be familiar with him, but he comes out of Wake Forest, but he's giving this scoop to Chris Vanini of The Athletic. He says the ACC ADs have a regularly scheduled meeting tomorrow. That means Wednesday. And this eligibility issue is on the agenda. Okay, so we've already heard from the SEC with a strongly worded statement. We know that the Big Ten is taking a bolder step, and I'll get to that here momentarily. Now the ACC is going to address it. Probably didn't think they'd have to include this on the agenda for their regularly scheduled meeting. But according to Chris Vanini of The Athletic, in fact, they're going to address it as well. Okay, so here's the Big Ten, which is the first conference to take a step that would say absolutely not in our conference. The Big Ten is set to pass a rule on Tuesday. So this news was breaking just a couple hours ago. And if you're watching the show live, this is a situation that's very much in flux. And so 6 hours down the road, or someone who's listening to this show as a podcast overnight, which I think is awesome, this may have already taken place. The Big Ten is set to pass a rule Tuesday that bars, prohibits, does not allow players to return from the NFL and then jump onto a roster for one of its member schools. And this is according to ESPN insider Pete Thamel. Any player who's declared for the NFL draft and did not withdraw. So regardless of whether or not Daquan Wright was drafted, and it turns out he wasn't, he ended up signing an undrafted free agent deal with the Eagles first and then with the Browns. Daquan Wright would no longer be eligible to participate on the college level in the Big Ten because he did put his name out there for the draft and did not withdraw before the deadline. Okay, so they've got multiple stipulations here, but just the idea of declaring for the draft and not withdrawing, regardless of whether or not you actually ended up hearing your name called, that would be one way that you would become ineligible to participate in Big Ten athletics. The next tenet of this, what the Big Ten is expected to adopt, this policy would also include any player who appeared on an NFL roster or signed a contract with a pro league cannot then turn around and be on a Big Ten roster. And again, this comes from ESPN insider Pete Thamel. So the Big Ten is going to adopt the first policy of its kind. The ACC may follow suit on Wednesday, but the Big Ten is saying if you declared for the draft and you did not withdraw, and by the way, that's a basketball policy too. They've already got a policy when it comes to the NBA. There's a deadline. If you declare for the draft and you don't withdraw by the deadline, you're no longer eligible to return to college. So that's actually not a unique idea. We just never thought we would need it for the NFL and for football. So Big Ten, they're throwing down the gauntlet. No way. This is not going to happen in our conference. Will the ACC follow suit? Will the SEC also take this step? Except, can the SEC take this step when LSU has already got a Daquan Wright who is headed for its roster, not to mention some basketball players that might end up in the SEC at both LSU and Kentucky and maybe some other member schools. So these guys, these athletes, at this point, it's all male athletes. These athletes better get in under the wire before the SEC takes a step like this as well. So yeah, kind of convoluted. Okay, a few of your comments that are coming in on the live stream, want to share those because I do appreciate the live reaction. Troy says that there should be no going back. He says Wright going back to college makes more now than in the pros. This isn't right. Unfair practices are coming. And I do think that the SEC tried to highlight the fact that there could be some fairness issues here with an athlete who went to the pros, got some time on a training camp roster, maybe even participated in a preseason game. In the case of RJ Lewis, you're talking about a guy who actually participated in NBA preseason action, and he's had a year to try to kick around and find some NBA team that will take him. And he was on two different rosters that we didn't play in the regular season. So Troy is anti this policy of pro back to college and then potentially back to the pros. But Ron says, I don't quite understand why this matters so much. No real impact. A good player needs to go back to school. He will earn at least a second look by other teams if he's cut. So I get what you're saying. I think why it matters is because you could end up having some of these pro players who maybe as you point out, they get cut by a pro team, but they've earned money at that level. And are they now going to turn around and go back to college? So I think at this point, those lines are blurred, to use the phrase from the SEC. Those lines are blurred because of the NIL money and because of the money we know that college athletes are making. But Ron is saying, hey, if this is their way to get a second look or their way to revive their chances of playing in the pros at some point, what's the big deal? I like how the SEC phrased it. I like the fact that they pointed out, there are high school players who are trying to make these teams. They're freshmen. They're trying to find a roster spot or keep a scholarship. And then also the idea that, hey, if you're at the pro level and you're coming back to college, well, technically you were a professional athlete, at least for a short time. So how do we then... And it's hard because the money, that's the thing, is I keep coming back to the money at college now with NIL and soon to be pay for play. It really almost does mean that you're a professional athlete, right? You're earning money to play a sport. So to me, that makes you a pro. I know that Olympians make money now, even though a lot of them are still amateur athletes. So yes, the lines are very blurred. But to be able to have a pro athlete that comes back to your college roster, does that give you a competitive advantage if you're LSU? Now, in this case, and keeping in mind, Daquan Wright didn't end up hooking on. He was already cut even before cut down day. So he didn't have a spot or didn't play on an NFL team, other than, say, just being part of some training camp practices. But could you have a guy who has played in a bunch of preseason games? He was drafted, whereas Daquan Wright was not drafted. But say another guy gets drafted, he plays in preseason, he potentially could be on the NFL roster. Maybe it's in September. And then he decides, you know what? I actually feel like I'd get more playing time in college. So I think I'm going to go back and take advantage of my 5th year of eligibility. There's a lot of different ways that, if this loophole isn't closed, that maybe athletes try to take advantage of it. So maybe the issue right now, Ron, isn't, hey, this guy, he didn't work out in the pros, and so why not let him go back and play in college so that he can boost his draft status for the next round? But what if you have a guy who just decides, well, I feel like I'd get more playing time. I mean, isn't that why a lot of athletes transfer from college to college, is because they believe that they're going to get more playing time, or they're promised more playing time at another school? That's really why the transfer portal has become so active. Is there a lot of college athletes who think they can make more NIL money, or they'll get more playing time, maybe get more time on TV, or just, they want to be able to play a different position, something like that. They feel like the grass is greener for their college career at another school, so they jump to another school. Sometimes they jump to 3 or 4 different schools. Well, in the NFL, if a guy is kicking around as a backup, maybe he goes on the field for, I don't know, a handful of snaps a game, but thinks, you know what? I actually like playing every snap. What's to stop him from them petitioning for a 5th year of eligibility and joining a team? So there are other ways, if you kind of play this out, and the ripple effects, where if the loophole, again, isn't closed by the NCAA, then what's to say you aren't going to have an athlete who actually did get into regular season games say, I mean, it worked for them. Why can't I try it? Why can't I go back for my 5th year of eligibility? My goodness, it makes my head hurt. Okay, so I want to get to some other stories on this Tuesday, but I do appreciate that some of you are weighing in. David, one more comment before we take our break. David says college athletics, they're so wide open now because of NIL. Is being academically eligible even a requirement anymore? Well, you do have to be able to gain entry. You have to be admitted into the school. So in a case of Notre Dame, or really some of the schools like a Duke, where a Stanford, where we know that the academic requirements are higher, Ivy League, though they're a little bit different because they don't do the scholarships for athletes. But yeah, if you've got a school where you have to also qualify academically and you have to keep up your grades in order to be able to play, then yeah, that does factor in. But I would agree with you, David, as we go farther down this path with NIL and pay to play, it does feel like academics have taken a major backseat and that there's no such thing, at least in college and basketball, as a student athlete, meaning the student part comes first and it's in front of the hyphen because that's what's most important. But yeah, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of athletes who are actually in school for an education because they recognize they're not going to go pro. It's just these high profile salaries now, high profile NIL sums, college quarterbacks making $7 to $8 million, basketball stars making a ton of money. They tend to hog all the attention and the spotlight, but it's not the majority of college athletes who are making a huge haul and are then turning around and going pro. I mean, the vast majority of college athletes don't become professional athletes when they graduate. And the vast majority of athletes do actually graduate. All right, that's 1 hour down. Yeah, I need some, like, to take a breath or to take a Tylenol. Actually, I use Aleve, but just the whole thing, it's so complicated that thinking about it this much and this hard and kind of following it down the various paths, trying to predict the ripple effects, that can really, I mean, it can be, I think it can be stressful, which is why these conferences and schools are trying to manage it right now. But also it doesn't take you to a place where there are any definitive answers. So you're following it down the rabbit hole, but you don't know how far down that rabbit hole goes or what the end game actually could be. We're just seeing the very surface or the very beginnings of what this could mean for college sports. But thank you for your comments. It's good to know that you're present, that you're accounted for. We don't do roll call here on All In, but I do love seeing your comments and your good mornings or your good afternoons and knowing that you're with us here on the live show. YouTube is something new for me, but I love seeing all the traffic increase and the new subscribers. We're glad to have you with us here on All In with Amy Lawrence. Thank you to Rogue Media Network.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated with style and durability. You can trust Tervis tumblers to keep your drinks the perfect temperature, hot or cold, for hours. From the classic insulated tumblers to sleek stainless steel water bottles, each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
Happy Tuesday to you. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. I'm glad to know you are all in, or even if you're partway in, I say give me a couple weeks and you'll be all in. That was generally my rule when people would reach out to me as part of my radio adventures, and they would say, hey, at first I was skeptical. You're a girl talking about sports, or hey, you replaced a show that I really enjoyed and I just didn't think I was going to like your show nearly as much. My general rule of thumb is give me 2 weeks and I'll win you over. You may not love me, you may not love the show, but even if you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, you'll find it engaging enough that you have to keep coming back, even if it's just to fuel your hatred and your anger. Now, here's the thing. There are so many podcasts and shows out there that originate on the internet, whether it's YouTube, whether it's another pocket of the internet, if you will. It's a very crowded space. And it's kind of funny because part of what I teach my students is how to stand out in a crowded market. A lot of it is about finding the platform. A lot of it is about elbowing your way into the space and then using your own little niche, or in this case, your own little rectangular box on the internet to create a unique product and offering that then causes you to stand out. And I go through all the various ways that you can approach your show, cerebral, cognitive, creative, connection, all of those ways that you can create a show that does in fact stand out in what is a very crowded market, or as my brother says, just a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise on the internet, and he's so right. So now I'm having to practice what I preach to my students. The difference is, of course, so I'm not starting from scratch. I've got 30 years in the business and people already know my name, and I've got a lot of great connections who will come on the show and I can reach out to and say, hey, I'd really appreciate your jumping on with me. And we're going to do that the rest of the way. Some great guests lined up on our Hump Show, Hump Day. My friend Greg Bell in Seattle, he's got a really unique story. He's got a past that has nothing to do with football. An awesome man, a family man, but now is really deep into his Seahawks coverage and got a chance to cover the run to the Super Bowl last year. So our Seahawks insider, Greg Bell, will join us and we'll get the lowdown on this team as they begin defense of their Super Bowl championship, and also what it's been like to have those Hard Knocks cameras around all the time. On Thursday, going to stay more local for me, and a guy that I know well who was on my shows a bunch when I was doing straight radio, Sean Pendergast, who is part of Sports Radio 610 that's now morphed over to an FM signal in Houston. They're really excited about this transformation. It's the Fan 95.7. And actually, since I've done some part-time work for them, hoping I'll get a chance to do some over Labor Day weekend or moving into the fall. But they're really jazzed up about their change to FM, but also the Texans' new uniforms, their rivalry uniforms that have been released on this Tuesday. So Sean will join us on Thursday. And then on Friday, we may have to move her, but a longtime friend of mine in the industry, former SportsCenter anchor, and she also does work for SiriusXM NFL Radio, Jade McCarthy. And she's got a resume that is very diverse and highlights a lot of her skills. But also there may be times when I'm not here hosting because of family responsibilities or travel or something along those lines. And Jade may actually step in and host the show in my stead. So that's kind of the thought process right now for when I do need a day off. We still want there to be a live show that you all can watch. And kind of like when I would take a day off from radio, there would be someone there who would still hosting a live show. We want it to kind of be the same here on YouTube, just because once people establish patterns, we don't want to let you down. So Jade may be one of those people who steps in and has a chance to host when I'm out. And it's funny because you wouldn't normally take a day off in football season, number one, but number two, wouldn't normally take a day off this early in the process of trying to establish a new show. But my mom has a milestone birthday coming up this fall. So at the end of September, my brother's family is flying in, and we've got some special activities over a few days. And as much as I love the show, and it'll be early in the football season, and I'm torn about taking a day off. I may do the show earlier or something like that. My boss is pretty flexible when it comes to how the show airs, but we want to keep establishing that pattern and keep up that connection with you, especially during football season. So there may be, in fact, another host who steps in, and she will be amazing. So Jade will join us maybe Friday. I just saw a text from her, actually, so she might have to move. But it's neat to be able to invite people to be on the show, and I love the fact that we're getting so much traffic on our YouTube channel. Not like I'm Clay Travis or Stephen A. Smith or Pat McAfee starting something new. No, ours is the little engine that could, and we're building it from the ground up. So find us on our social at A-Law Radio. I'm more active on Twix than I am anywhere else. So Twix and Facebook, and we're building that Instagram page, and we're retooling TikTok. Oh my gosh. Please don't look. Just, can you give me another week of grace before you check out TikTok? All right. Thanks again for your live comments. So good to connect with you here on this terrific Tuesday. So a couple of basketball topics that I want to, lace up the high tops and run full court. I want to get into just because I feel like with the WNBA, and it even is the case with the most recent game between the Fever and the Sky, as much as the attention should be on Caitlin Clark and her career high 8 triples and her 37 points, and the fact that her backcourt mate Kelsey Mitchell had 30. I mean, these are two MVP candidates right now in the WNBA, though they're likely to split votes. And that happens sometimes, regardless of sport, where you've got two athletes who are having career seasons. And when it comes to the MVP voting, it's hard to know. Is it Caitlin Clark? Is it Kelsey Mitchell? Who's been more valuable on the Fever? So then how do you determine? If you can't determine who's more valuable for the actual team, then it's hard to determine if one of them is more valuable than the other in the league-wide voting. But yeah, what Caitlin and Kelsey have done this season is phenomenal. Kelsey's on this stretch where she just steps on the court and she puts up 20. And Caitlin Clark is definitely raising the bar. It's good to know that she's healthy. I love the fact that she's healthy, because we missed her in her second season in the WNBA, where she was only able to participate in a handful of games. And it was really hard for her to be away from the game that she loved for the first time in an extended stretch. So she had a career high of these 8 triples, and the team as a whole was able to can 18 3-pointers. So that was a franchise record for a single game, 18 threes. She had a double-double because she also had the 10 assists to go along with the 37 points. And what happens when you've got two athletes like Caitlin and Kelsey who are playing at such a high level? They then raise the bar for the rest of the roster. Not only do they attract a lot of attention, so opposing defenses have no choice but to try to run schemes just to contain those two players. And I think it's kind of funny. You get in this zone if you're Caitlin or Kelsey, and the other teams are actually willing to give you 15 or 20. And hey, if we can limit them to 15 or 20, well, we feel like we've done our jobs. But the issue is, of course, that when you are focusing more of your defense, I have a stat from Caitlin that I've saved on my likes, so I want to go and get it, which is why I'm looking at my phone while I'm talking to you. Sorry about that. So when you've got two athletes that are attracting so much of the attention, well, then you know that other players are going to be open. And that's where Caitlin is even more dangerous. She'll drive into the paint. She'll go behind the back to a teammate that's open. When the defense collapses on her, she can see she's got another player who's diving to the hoop, a teammate that she can then go ahead and funnel the ball to. I feel like I'm not finding the stat that I wanted. I guess I can Google it. It's pretty amazing what she's been able to do just because of the fact that she's got a Kelsey Mitchell who's attracting a lot of the attention. So a career year for Caitlin Clark at over 22 points per game, nearly 4 rebounds, and then 8 assists. And remember, she not only set the assist record as a rookie for a season, but she was also blowing the top off those assist numbers when she was first in the league. And now, but the turnovers were there too. Now she's got the ratio between assists and turnovers to be smaller, and she's taking better care of the basketball, but also she's stronger. She's able to protect that basketball better from the defense that comes at her. She's seen more of the defensive schemes now in the WNBA and what sets teams might run at her to contain her. And she's extended her range. But she's also said too, she's gotten smarter when it comes to what she does with the basketball. She says going back to her rookie year, she would just kind of step back farther and take a lower percentage shot. Even for her, the farther you are away from the basketball, half court is not a high percentage shot, even if we do see her make a few from the logo. And while that's her signature shot, that's not a higher percentage shot than, say, one from the elbow, or better yet, setting up your teammates for a layup. So the way that she's been able to expand her skills, get stronger so that she's not as vulnerable to the defenses that come at her. And sure, they're going to play her physical, but she's able to withstand. Now, not when it's illegal, when she's getting hammered across the face or when someone's choking her. Those are not legal defenses, though they are tried against Caitlin Clark. But she's able to withstand the pounding a little more and the rigors of a full WNBA season. And because she is stronger, because she's able to take what the defense throws at her, and over the course of a game, she's not wearing out, she's not exhausted, she's actually much more productive and much more lethal when it comes to setting up her teammates. But the funny part is that she's not even the Fever's top scorer this season. Kelsey Mitchell is averaging nearly 25 points per game to Caitlin's 22 plus. So yeah, it's really neat to see the way these two women are driving the Fever, and they've already clinched a playoff spot. And if you look at the standings, they've been as high as 3rd in the WNBA standings as we get close to the playoffs. But right now, I think they're in 5th or 6th, just because there's a group of players, and we're used to this from the NBA, especially during the stretch right toward the playoffs. There's a bunch of teams that are grouped together where they're only separated by a half game here or a game here. Maybe it's a loss that separates them, or, they have one more win and they're up as high as 3rd in the league standings. So yeah, it's pretty amazing to see the way that they've grown as a team. I know Stephanie White took a lot of flack and criticism earlier in the year, and maybe it was a hot seat under her because the expectations are so high, but it's not anymore. They had a 5-game win streak recently, then they dropped back-to-back games, and now they're on the winning track again. And so it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, to see this Fever team on the postseason stage, and the excitement around Caitlin Clark and her teammates, if they can make some noise in the playoffs. Man, we'll see brand new records when it comes to TV viewership. We already know that games involving the Fever get moved to bigger arenas in various cities. So they're not in the WNBA home arenas, which might be smaller. They're moved to the arenas where the NBA teams play so that more people can buy tickets. Obviously, it's a revenue consideration, but it's neat that more people get to see Caitlin Clark in person. I know my mom and her husband, he especially has been on the hunt for tickets, for affordable tickets, so that mom can see Caitlin Clark play in person. And when I tell you she's not been to a basketball game in decades, I mean it. I've taken her to a couple of baseball games. Even since she's moved to Houston, she had actually been to Daikin Park now. It was Minute Maid Park. She'd been to see the Astros play in person downtown before I did. So she'd been to a couple of baseball games. I've gone to baseball games with her because it's more of a chill atmosphere. But she really wants to see Caitlin play in person. And I know Houston is actually about to revive its WNBA franchise. So that may be an opportunity. But Mike has checked out prices for Dallas Wings games or other games that are closer that they might be able to make. And the prices are exorbitant. And so she still got that as a bucket list item, which makes me happy. I know we can't eat, we can't talk on the phone, we can't have a conversation when the Fever are playing. And so I got to be mindful of the Fever schedule whenever I want to get my mom's attention. But I would love for her to be able to go and watch Caitlin and the Fever play in person. And I'm really excited for them to after, what would this be, Caitlin's third year, after drafting her and being at the bottom of the league, to see the meteoric rise and how the fans have been rewarded for their loyalty and the fact that they support the Fever now. I call it Fever. So I sometimes use the hashtag Fever. You remember Little Caesars? Pizza, pan. So it's Fever around Caitlin Clark, and it will only increase to a crescendo should they really go into the playoffs with a full head of steam. So there's another basketball player that I'm excited to talk about before we wrap up this edition of the show. He is a future Hall of Famer. It's been a journey with some twists and turns the last couple years, but I'm excited for what 26-27 holds for him. And I'll explain why it also is a fun connection between me and Mom. That's straight ahead. Glad to have you with us here on the live stream, or if you're catching us on podcast, also make sure you find us on social media at A-Law Radio, After Hours with Amy Lawrence on our Facebook page. And yeah, everything but TikTok. Just please, between you and I, just leave that one alone. Instagram, yes, cool. Let's boost our Instagram presence, but we're working. TikTok is under construction. I'm telling you, it's just flat out awful. So please don't look. Glad to have you with us. Thankful for Waco Surf. Even as we head toward the end of summer and Labor Day, there's still a few weekends left to go and stay and play at Waco Surf. And with the heat, the water park is essential right now. So make a date, make a plan to hang out at Waco Surf before the summer is done officially and Labor Day ushers us into a whole new schedule. It's All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18-hole regulation golf course as well as an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. Plus, check out their bar and grill, which is open to the public. And if you're not a golfer, then enjoy time by the pool or even enjoy fishing around Lake Waco. Become a member today and call to book your tee time. Lake Waco Golf Club, where family and friends fun begins. Check them out at lakewacogc.com for more information.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Enjoy a quiet atmosphere with beautiful river views at the Brazos Landing, located in Waco along the Brazos River across from McLean Stadium. Enjoy homemade dishes like shrimp and grits, chicken piccata, braised short ribs, prime New York steaks, and more. Plus, enjoy a delicious dessert like creme brulee or key lime pie. Open for lunch and dinner Tuesday through Sunday. Brazos Landing in Waco, the only place where I-35 and the Brazos River meet.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us on our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
I thought I had saved that Caitlin Clark stat that I wanted to pass along. It's yet another WNBA record that she now holds, and I am fully confident that she will add to this record, maybe even later this year. I didn't favorite it for some reason on my social, but I did just find it by searching for it online. Caitlin Clark has more 30.10 assist games in her short WNBA career than does the entire rest of the league combined over the past 30 years. How about that? Let me say it again. Caitlin Clark has more 30 plus points and 10 plus assist games. So meaning she's had a 30 and 10 in the same game. She's got more of those, 5 of them in her 2.5 seasons in the WNBA than the rest of the league has combined in its entire history. So we're celebrating the 30th year of the WNBA in 2026. As you know, because of the poster that left Caitlin Clark off of it. She just had 37 points and 10 assists in the game we were talking about. I was telling you about the game between the Sky and the Fever in which she hit a record 8 triples. Well, that was a 37-10 game. Now she's got 5 performances like that, where she's been above 30 points and above 10 assists in the same game. The entire WNBA career games that exceed 30 and 10 in the whole league history over 3 decades, 4. Caitlin has 5. The WNBA has 4. That's pretty amazing. And I do think it's funny too. Some people have pointed out, I've seen it online, that, hey, this is a guard or a player that earlier this season was voted by her peers as the 11th best guard in the league. Huh. That's going to change, whether begrudgingly or whether she gets her flowers and is applauded for all the extra attention that she's brought to the league, the excitement, the buzz, the energy, the fans, the ticket sales, all of that stuff. A lot of that is because of Caitlin. And whether or not people come for Caitlin Clark and stay for Asia Wilson, they come for Caitlin Clark, they stay for the Liberty winning a championship. They show up to watch because of Caitlin Clark, and they fall in love with the game of another player, and that gets them excited about a different franchise or a different team. Whatever. A lot of it still happens because of Caitlin initially. She's not only transcending the WNBA, but really transcending the sport of basketball. Every single game, every single arena where she shows up, there are hundreds of young girls and boys who want her autograph, who are standing there to try to get a picture with her. Not just that, but there are other professional athletes who show up to get their photos with Caitlin Clark. It happens every single game. Celebrities and pro athletes from other sports who want to have their moment with Caitlin. She's the Taylor Swift of the WNBA, and that's not going to change because her basketball, her brand of basketball is in fact worthy of all the attention. We're not just talking about Paris Hilton famous. And the reason I say that is because I don't know why Paris Hilton is famous. I've asked this question before. She's essentially famous because she's rich and because her family has a recognizable last name. Maybe she's done some reality TV in the past, but she doesn't have a skill or a talent that puts her in the spotlight for that reason. Now, I'm not saying she's a worthless human. Please don't mistake my words. Only that she's famous because she's famous, right? She's famous for being famous. She's famous because her family has a lot of money and their last name is a recognizable brand around the world. Otherwise, there's no reason for her to be famous. I'm sure she's a great wife and mom. In fact, I hope that she is. And it sounds like she has changed a lot over the course of her growing up in the spotlight. But Caitlin Clark is famous because her basketball rocks, because her brand of basketball is exciting. Caitlin Clark is famous because of what she does with that little orange ball between her hands, right? Caitlin Clark is famous because her game dazzles us and because she wins wherever she goes. She's famous also because she's kind to fans, because she takes the spotlight and doesn't push back against it for the most part. She takes that spotlight and she wants to use it for good. She smiles, she has fun, she signs autographs before every game, and she enjoys the connections with, say, Tyrese Halliburton or other NBA players. She enjoys connecting and taking photos with famous soccer players or with celebrities. She doesn't take herself too seriously. I'm sure she has an ego. Most pro athletes do. It kind of fuels them to continue to get better and to be the best. But this is a young woman who comes across as humble and laughs at herself and enjoys basketball more than anything. That's her first love, and she doesn't lose focus on her job and what she's on the court to do. In fact, she really wishes that more people would focus on the basketball and less on everything else that's swirling around the WNBA. And it's funny because I often compare her arc to Steph Curry for a couple of reasons. Number one, she went to a school in Iowa that wasn't getting as much attention for its women's basketball until she and her teammates, her junior and senior years, till they came along and they dazzled us all. Okay. And she was the driving force, but you don't win with one player. Yes, she sent a new NCAA scoring record. Yes, she was making logo threes. And yes, she's part of the reason why viewers were crushing old records and just blowing TV numbers out of the water. But it was her teammates too, and a lot of them became household names while she was still at Iowa. But remember, Steph Curry. Now, Steph Curry's college choice was a smaller school that really hadn't had a ton of attention, whereas Iowa does have a long history when it comes to women's basketball. But the attention that these two schools got is because of Caitlin's entertaining brand of basketball and because the scoring record she was smashing, just like Steph Curry. Remember when he was a sophomore and he powered Davidson to the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament. So he became the star that we got to watch, actually a skinny little kid. He was pretty slight when he was in college, if you go back and you look at the photos of Steph Curry. But his handles, the way that he could set up his teammates, the fact that he could shoot from anywhere in the building with these fantastic threes. He and Caitlin Clark had very similar games. Now, hers was more prolific in the women's game, and she and her teammates made it to back-to-back Final Fours, whereas that's not the arc of Steph Curry. But he captivated America with his game when Davidson went to the Elite Eight in his sophomore year. He came back his junior year. They also made the NCAA tournament, though they didn't get as far. And then he jumped to the NBA. Similar to Caitlin, when the two of them were first in their respective pro leagues, they were a little bit too thin. They took a pounding from opposing defenses. They got a lot of attention. They got hard fouls. They each suffered with some early injuries. But people showed up to watch Caitlin and Steph in droves because of the dynamic game, the entertainment, the captivating way that they play. It's a lot of fun to watch, right? Both Caitlin Clark and Steph Curry have games with multiple skills. I think we're probably attracted mostly by the deep threes a lot of the times, especially when they come in dramatic moments. But both Steph and Caitlin have had a ton of attention on them from the very beginning of their pro careers, and they have exceeded the hype. Caitlin is doing that the way that Steph Curry is now. He had to get stronger. He had to get bigger. He had to figure out how to outsmart the defenses as they would come to him. He also had to learn how to set up his teammates. And it was Golden State and their brand of basketball under Steve Kerr that really reminded me why I fell in love with basketball in the first place. And I think that's the case with Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. People are showing up because their brand of basketball, the way that she drives the fever, and now Kelsey Mitchell, Sophie Cunningham, Michaela Timpson. There's so many of her teammates that are part of this process now. She may be the driving force. She may be the quarterback on the court, but it's not just her. So people show up to watch Caitlin Clark and they really get excited about the Fever brand of basketball, which right now is high octane. They routinely go over triple digits when it comes to their games. You know, we've seen them 110, 119. It's a lot of fun to watch. We really do enjoy the scoring and the dazzling behind the back passes or the deep logo threes. Well, going back to when Steph Curry was earlier in his career with Klay Thompson, the Splash Brothers in the NBA, they got a lot of attention because their brand of basketball was up tempo, the touch passes, getting all 5 players involved on the court, just the way that they would play defense and then fast break the other direction. And because of the deep threes of Steph Curry, those fun highlight reel moments where he would drive to the hoop, where he'd befuddle the defense and he'd get to the glass and be able to lay the ball up and in. It's just a lot of fun to watch Steph. And it was so much fun to watch those Golden State Warriors that won the 4 championship rings. Also to see he and Klay Thompson kind of one up each other. I mean, they were so supportive, but hey, it was a game of horse at times on the court where one would be hot, then the other would be hot. And my mom and I really loved watching not just Klay and Steph together, but the Splash Brothers, their dazzling brand of basketball, and how much fun they had on the court. And I was really sad when the Warriors and Klay Thompson parted ways. I understand why. He felt like he had more in the tank. He felt like he could go somewhere else and earn more money based on his history. He felt like the Warriors in their last contract offer to him were really overlooking or maybe forgetting what he'd meant to that franchise. And I understand it's a business and that business was painful for him. He ended up going to the Dallas Mavericks, which they had big dreams too, but they didn't quite play out. Why? Well, because Luka Doncic ends up traded and because Kyrie Irving tore his ACL again and hasn't been able to stay on the court. So the Mavericks experiment didn't work out the way that he wanted. I'm really hoping that this next stop, after so many twists and turns, and that includes for Klay, a torn ACL in the WNBA. Sorry. Don't turn that into a joke. I was just talking about the W, which is why it's fresh in my mind. Klay Thompson tore his ACL in the NBA finals. And just as he was about to come back to basketball, then blew his Achilles. So he missed more than 2 years of being on court. And I just remember the interviews he would do, but even when he wouldn't do interviews, the facial expressions, the body language on the bench, at times he couldn't even be in the arena because he couldn't stand to watch his teammates play without him. He missed it so much. And so to see him now healthy, number one, but also he had more than 200 triples for the Mavericks last season. I know the Mavericks didn't end up making a lot of noise, though he got to play with Cooper Flagg for a bit. They're not yet a championship contender the way they anticipated. But for Klay, he found a rhythm again, and he had another season in which he was over 200 triples. So the Miami Heat were very patient. They knew they wanted to sign Klay Thompson, but they waited for him to get waived by the Mavericks. The Mavericks are trying to retool their roster for a while. They had too many guys. They had to actually get rid of someone because you can only have 15 players on your roster once the season starts. So here's Klay Thompson, who's hitting the reset button again. I will always be one of his biggest fans, and I think Mom and I really enjoy watching him play, even post Golden State career. But I'm hoping for him that this turns into a resurgent season because he's teaming up now with Giannis Antetokounmpo, so Giannis, Greek freak, who ended up in Miami, right? So he picked Miami after leaving Milwaukee for a while. There were a bunch of other teams in the running, but he ends up picking Miami. So Giannis is there. Bam Adebayo is there. I mean, he's a force of nature. And so you've got some incredible dudes in the front court who are all-stars, who've been part of the playoffs. Obviously, Giannis is an NBA champion like Klay Thompson, so they speak the same language. And here is Klay, who has a chance to pursue another title before his career is done. He is healthy, but he's also 36 years old. So, can he have another year in which he provides that outside shooting that will open up the lane for Giannis and for Bam? I think that's what they're hoping. That's the idea for Klay Thompson, is that he will be that threat beyond the arc with the ball in his hands, or maybe as the off guard where he's just posting up around the arc waiting for the ball to come to him. He's fourth already on the NBA's all-time three-pointers made list, so not taken, made. And he has a 2-year deal with Miami. I think there's an option for the second year, but I love that Pat Riley called him one of the most iconic players to ever suit up in the NBA. And of course, points to the fact that he's battle tested. He's a 4-time world champion. And we're really looking for him to bring not just that experience, but his knowledge of the game and the ways to help his teammates and to open up the offense for the Heat. So yeah, he's going into his 14th season in the league. So he and Steph Curry still active, right? They played together for all those years. They were a prolific backcourt for all those years. I don't know which one retires first, but I love that they're still playing and that we can still appreciate their brand of basketball. And I'll say it again, the Golden State Warriors, going back to, when Steve Kerr took over and they had Draymond Green as kind of the centerpiece of that defense. It was so much fun to watch. Harrison Barnes in there as well. Andre Iguodala, another one who was part of their run. And to watch how much they shared the basketball and how much joy they had when they were on the court. Of course, it was up tempo and it was lively and it was energetic. Just reminded me, I had become disenchanted with the brand of basketball we were seeing in the NBA. I can't stand dribble, shoot from beyond the arc. And I know they shot a lot of threes, of course, but they also shared the basketball. They also played defense. It wasn't just about shooting threes. The James Harden brand of basketball, you could miss me with that. And I hate the fact that basketball has changed its rules so much at the NBA level that now even hand checks are considered fouls. I can't stand seeing games in which you have 115 free throws. Also boring as heck. And so I didn't love what we were seeing in the NBA, where it was less a contact sport, where there were fewer big men who were able to play back to the basket. And I mean, the game is continually changing, but I love the brand that we got from the Golden State Warriors. And Mom and I really enjoyed watching the Splash Brothers. So I'm glad they're both still playing. And I'm really hoping that for Klay Thompson, this is a new lease on his career. Maybe he finishes his career with Miami, but has a chance to pursue another title and to be part of that postseason atmosphere. Just one more stat, and we'll call this a nerd alert for Klay Thompson, because his bread and butter is the 3-point shot. That's what many people look for with Klay. Now, he can drive, he can play defense, but some of that explosiveness and that quick first step are gone after his injuries and just age and the number of miles he has on his body. But last season was the 11th time he's made more than 200 triples in a season. Okay, so he's got a long and storied history, 11 different years in which he's been able to make 200 3-pointers, 200 or more 3-pointers. The Heat as a franchise, this will blow you away. In their history, their entire franchise history, they've had a player make 200 threes in a single season only 7 times. So Klay has more in his NBA career than the Heat have in their entire franchise history. So yes, he's a unique player for them. I know they had Tyler Hero recently, who was a great 3-point shooter, but Klay brings next level threes and next level deep offense. And if he can be a threat this season on the arc, well, then the Heat will see more space on the interior for Giannis and for Bam to operate. And Bam's so explosive when he gets close to the hoop. So this should be fun. In fact, the NBA season with some of the All-Stars changing uniforms should be a lot of fun if these teams can gel, come together, get to know their new teammates, find a rhythm. We could see some exciting basketball this winter. Oh, I can't wait for winter. Thanks for hanging out with us. Now, as we head up toward the top of the hour, well, you're not going to get nearly as much buzz or nearly as much derision around the quarterback battle in Atlanta as we are in Cleveland. But still, it's kind of interesting. And there's a wrinkle. Could it be a three-way QB fight, a three-way competition? That's next here. All In with Amy Lawrence on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network.
It's the premier charity event of the year, the 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, presented by Ascension Provident. A fun evening filled with great food and drink, dancing, a spectacular auction, and more. This year's theme is Nashville Nights, Neon Lights, and Bullfights. Get your tickets now, donate, or be a sponsor. Help support the American Cancer Society to find a cure. The 2026 Central Texas Cattle Barons Ball, October 24th at MCC Highlander Ranch. For more information, go to centraltexascattlebaronsball.org.
Summer isn't over yet. Make every last splash count at Waco Surf. Catch perfect waves, float the lazy river, or relax on the beach while the kids make unforgettable memories. Stay in their hotel or private cabins, or hook up with your RV. Located just 90 miles from Dallas and Austin, set on 450 acres in the heart of Texas, Waco Surf is unlike any other water park around. Before school starts, give your family one more epic adventure. WacoSurf.com. Book your stay today and catch a wave.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us on our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
When you learn a language with Babbel, you start a journey that takes you further and further. Anytime and anywhere you wish. It's easy and fun. Broadens your horizons and keeps your brain fit. A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
I used to do this without a camera on me, but when I hear the music, I can't sit still. To be fair, I can't really sit still any of the time, music or not. I don't sit still well. It's not one of my skills. If you would like to know my weakness in life, one of them is sitting still. And also riding as a passenger in a car. Unless I'm distracted, I'm not a great passenger. You can ask my husband, not a good passenger. I prefer to be driving, and I just, I don't know, just not doing something. Even when we have people over at the house, as much as I enjoy having company, and I'm always really happy when we can share a home with people, whether it's neighbors or family. I love being a hostess, but I don't sit still well. Even when the food is made and served or people are hanging out after a meal, I still a lot of times feel compelled to get up, put condiments away, start getting Tupperware out for leftovers, or even start the dishes. Yeah, I'm fast twitch, which is good, I guess, because I can still be productive, but I don't sit well. So I used to move all around in my chair in my radio studio and no one would see me. No one would be any wiser about it. But now I feel a little exposed here on this camera, but you're getting to know me in a different way. Thanks so much for all your comments on this edition of the show. It's really neat to see that many of you are watching live and are consuming All In, or you're going all in, I should say, at the same time that we are. So that's awesome. As I mentioned, coming up, we'll have some great guests for the final 3 shows of this week, but also coming up on Wednesday, Hump Show, Hump Day, your chance to ask Amy anything. We've got some new art, actually. Well, it's on my phone. I looked at my phone. I'll show you my phone. You're just going to have to check it out on our social media. So Zach and I were working on some new art for Ask Amy, just so that every week you see the banner and you know it's here. So if you want to check it out on social, I'm actually going to share it when the show is done so we can start to generate some of your questions even before we get to our hump day. I want to give you extra time to come up with the most creative questions. So I'll probably share the new banner later today on social media, including YouTube. Did you know there's a place you can put up a post on YouTube? It doesn't just have to be a video. It can be a meme, a photo. In the past, I shared our logo. So yeah, there's a place on YouTube. It's kind of a one-stop shop. You can find everything you need there on the YouTube channel. And we are seeing our subscribers steadily creep upward. So it makes me happy that people are investing in the new show. Okay. As we head up toward the top of the hour, we've managed to avoid talking about the Browns for more than, say, 60 seconds. It's been a Browns-free zone. That won't last, of course, because the Browns are definitely one of those franchises that always has something going on. Well, their quarterback battle for now has been settled, and so we can just leave it after it was all the rage for the sports broadcasting industry on Monday. But I kind of giggled as I was preparing for the show and seeing what's going on with the Falcons, because I can sit here and riff on the Falcons quarterback battle, but it's not nearly the lightning rod that is the Browns quarterback battle for so many reasons. It would take me the rest of the week to talk to you about why that is the case. The Browns are just one of those franchises that cause people to take a stand. Everyone's got an opinion about the Browns. Well, the Falcons, I think, have actually been in a worse spot. Hear me out. At times over the past, we'll say, has it been 8 or 9 years since Matt Ryan was there? Let me check that. The Falcons, since Matt Ryan, well, since they parted ways with Matt Ryan, he was really the rock. He was the foundation on which the Falcons were built for quite a while. They were one of the standards in the NFC, obviously went to a Super Bowl. He won an MVP. But since Matt Ryan, not only has there been a ton of turnover at the quarterback position, but they've not been able to get back to the point at which they're a legitimate championship contender. And I go back to those days where we had the Matt Ryan-led Falcons and the Drew Brees-led Saints, and how much fun it was to see those two quarterbacks lead their teams into battle, if you will. A true rivalry, a lot of trash talking, a lot of hatred between the two fan bases. And by hatred, I mostly mean jealousy. So Matt Ryan, he took over in 2008, and he was their starting quarterback other than 2019, where I think it was one game where Matt Schaub started, another season where Chris Redman played a couple of games. Matt Ryan was really an Iron Man at the quarterback position. So from 2008 to 2021, he was the gold standard. He was the man. But since then, 22, 23, 24, 25, and now 26. There's not been a lot of stability at the position. So you remember Arthur Smith took over as the head coach from Dan Quinn, right? And Marcus Mariota, I don't know if he would have been his first choice, but by the time Arthur was looking and the Falcons were ready to sign a quarterback, Mariota was really the best of what was left. And he and Smith had a pre-existing relationship. So it was Mariota and it was Desmond Ridder. Then it was Ridder and Taylor Heineke in 23. Then they bring in Kirk Cousins, but they also draft Michael Penix. And so there's no more Mariota or Ridder or Heineke. It's Kirk Cousins, who then ceded the position to Michael Penix as a rookie. He took over and started the last few games of that regular season. And then it was Penix, and it was back to Kirk Cousins last year after Penix tore his ACL. So Penix going into his third year, so still in his rookie deal, going into his third year with the Atlanta Falcons, but a new coach, a new system. He just recently got cleared for contact. Now, in training camp and preseason, there's not a lot of contact with the quarterbacks. Many times they're wearing their red jerseys and you're not supposed to touch them. If you watched Hard Knocks, you see Michael McDonald going after a defensive lineman who has been too close to the quarterback during the course of training camp, and Michael McDonald was pissed about that. Like, actually chucked him out of practice. The D lineman stopped breathing on the quarterback. So there's not a lot of contact for quarterbacks in the preseason, but Penix has now been cleared. He can go into their final preseason game. But how comfortable is Kevin Stefanski with having Michael Penix as his starter when he missed all of the offseason? He missed most of training camp, the first 2 preseason weekends. There's not a whole lot of time for him to get comfortable. Now, presumably, he's been studying the Stefanski playbook, and he's been getting as much knowledge as he can, like book knowledge, to get ready for the season, knowing he'd be cleared. But he's not had a whole lot of time to implement the new system and to get comfortable with the new terminology and speech and cadence and blah, 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 blah. So it's different every time there's a new head coach. So Tua Tagovailoa has been taking a lot of those first team snaps, but he's not had a great preseason. He's been frustrated. The team's offense has looked pretty bad when Tua has been out there. The guy who's kind of thrust himself into this quarterback competition is the third-year dude, Jack Strand, and he made a ton of headlines and made waves with the way that he played in their second preseason weekend. So I don't stats in the preseason because often if you're the third string QB, you're playing against the deep reserves on defense. So the other team's not throwing their first team defenders out there when you're facing a third string QB for the most part. So a lot of times it's hard to judge, but people are really excited, especially in Atlanta, about what they saw from Jack Strand because he had over 200 passing yards and a couple of touchdowns, including one on the ground. So now we know the question has been posed to Kevin Stefanski: is this a 3-way quarterback competition? And he's actually said yes. He's indicated that even with Michael Penix cleared and even with Tua having the most reps in his system to this point, the most reps during OTAs and now in the preseason, that Jack Strand is very much a part of this competition. He indicated that he said, now, this is coach speak, okay? So let's not get too excited. I don't know if Jack has an advantage. Probably not, because he doesn't have any experience in the NFL to this point. But he says, I think with all of our guys, everyone prepares to be the starter. We work with our young guys. We want to make sure that we put all of them, Jack included, through a process so that they can understand the system, understand defenses. And so he kind of takes you down this winding road where he doesn't confirm or deny. But what people are seeing is that Jack has played his way into this competition. And so it's Tua and it's Michael Penix and it's Jack Strand. And we do not yet have a definitive word from the Falcons who will start week number 1, which means they're going to continue this competition through the final weekend of preseason, the last few practices of training camp, and then we'll get some definitive declaration from Kevin Stefanski. And we're still waiting on the Raiders as well. So we've got 2 quarterback battles, 2 empty seats for starting QBs in the league. And yeah, that'll definitely make headlines, though probably not the same riffing as we did with the Browns. Thank you, Deshaun Watson. The Browns are a gift that keeps on giving for my industry. And that's a show. I could keep going. 2 hours feels like not a lot of time. But that's good. That means that we have plenty to talk about to fuel us through the rest of the week. Thanks for hanging out with us. So glad to have you with us here, all in on YouTube and the Rogue Media Network. Back for the Hump Show and Ask Amy tomorrow.